So hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of AMZ's Corner. How you all doing out there? So anyways, I got 5 more automotive questions to answer that you guys have asked in my comments section. And if you happen to have an automotive question about your car, a bill you may have gotten, a noise, or an automotive question in general, or a question about AMZ's Corner, then ask it down in the comments and I'll answer it next week. So anyways, let's get right into this. Question 1. Do I need to flush my brake fluid, and if so, how often should I do it? Now that's a pretty good question. Brake fluid is what's called hygroscopic, which means that it will suck moisture out of the air and hold it inside of it, and that can cause rusting into metal surfaces. So that comes down to a couple of different things. One would be, how old is your vehicle? One thing you have to consider when asking for your brake fluid flushed or going out and doing it yourself is, are the bleeder screws on the calipers and wheel cylinders at the wheels themselves, are those screws gonna come undone to allow the brake fluid to even be bled? Sometimes people want their brake fluid flushed on a car with a lot of miles, a lot of hard use, and those bleeders will be frozen and they'll either strip right off or snap right off inside the caliper. Now they can be removed from the calipers, but typically for the amount of work taken and how much a new caliper or wheel cylinder is, it's easier to just replace the unit. So yeah, I'm going to say you should replace your brake fluid on newer vehicles every 5 years or so. You can give it a visual inspection too. Open your hood and look at your master cylinder. Look at the little reservoir. They're made out of clear plastic for a reason. So you can see the brake fluid, you can check the level, and you can see if there's any contaminants in there. What I see a lot up here in New England is there's this kind of a mold almost, for lack of a better word. It's like a black fungus that grows inside of the brake fluid. I don't know if it's using the moisture to survive in there, but even relatively new vehicles will have this black substance in the reservoir. Something you can do on your own cars to kind of help keep this problem down is you can get an old turkey baster or any kind of thing to pump out some fluid and just take out as much of what's in that reservoir as you can and add fresh brake fluid on top. As by and large, what's in the system itself, other than what's in the reservoir, is in a completely sealed system, which has no access to water or oxygen to get in to degrade the fluid. So really, what mostly will get contaminated is what's in the reservoir itself. So if you just you've got an older vehicle and you don't want to go through the hassle of replacing all of your wheel cylinders or calipers and what have you on your application, just change what's in the reservoir. That will take care of pretty much whatever gets into the system. When something goes wrong, when you replace your brake hoses, if a caliper seizes up and you need to replace that, typically when that gets done, you're going to bleed the brakes and kind of change a lot of the fluid anyways. So I'm going to say change what's in the reservoir, and if you got a newer vehicle, yeah, maybe every 5 years or so, get the bleeders broken open and the whole system sucked down. But yeah, you can take care of the reservoir yourself. Now, question 2. I have a 2000 Ford F-150 with a 5.4. He has an oxygen sensor code B1131. Now that code tells me that it's bank 1, sensor 1. Now typically there are 4 oxygen sensors in most modern vehicles. Sometimes some California emissions cars might have a separate converter which is monitored by an oxygen sensor further downstream. The way that the numbers correlate and work is bank 1 sensor 1, bank 2 sensor 1, bank 1 sensor 2, and bank 2 sensor 2. What these are for is the first oxygen sensors in line monitor what's coming out of the engine and is what the PCM uses to tell the injectors to put more fuel or pull a little fuel, whether they're sensing rich or lean condition. The sensors after the oxygens, after the catalytic converters, are there to monitor the converters themselves. So what your Ford has is a bank 1 sensor 1 code, which means the first sensor on the side of the engine that cylinder 1 is on. I want to say on your Ford it's the passenger side will be your first sensor, probably, I believe it's in the manifold or just downstream of the manifold before the catalytic converter on that side. That is the sensor you want to target and check for signals. You can do it with the scan tool that reads the code, can tell you if that sensor is switching. You usually use the other side, bank 2 sensor 1, to correlate to see if they're both doing about the same thing. Now you also go on to ask if I'm replacing my oxygen sensors, should I replace my catalytic converters too? Absolutely not. Catalytic converters are pretty pricey, and a lot of them are kind of tough to get out of the manifolds. So you kind of want to just replace the sensor, and the converter should be fine. Now, if the converter was an issue, you will also have a P0420 code, which is what the PCM has seen that the oxygen sensors, the bank sensor 1 and sensor 2 after the converter is no longer, it's seeing the same switching that sensor 1, which indicates that the catalytic converter is no longer working efficiently. If you have a P0420 code as well as the 1131 code, then yes, you're probably going to need a new catalytic converter. But if you don't have that 420 catalyst efficiency code, don't worry about your converter. Replace that oxygen sensor, that first sensor in line. You can just replace it yourself, but I recommend doing a little bit of diagnostic with the scan tool just to see if it's working or not. So I hope that helps you out on that. If you got any more questions, need a little more clarification, I can get into a little more detail. Question 3. What is my opinion on replacing all 4 tires at the same time on an all-wheel drive vehicle? Is this just a ploy, a gimmick to sell more tires and make more money while your car's in there? No, that is absolutely not a gimmick. Some of these late model all-wheel drive systems have slipper clutches, computer-controlled traction-adding devices, and they rely on all 4 wheels traveling at the same rate. Now, there is some change when you're taking a corner. The front wheels will travel a little further than the rear, and that PCM or that 4-wheel drive system will decouple the wheels just enough slip to compensate for that difference. If you have different size wheels front to back, it's going to be compensating that difference whether you're just driving straight, and that will generate a lot of heat in the system. It'll break down the fluid fast, it'll wear out the components fast, and will just cause general drivability issues. So yes, you really should replace your tires on an all-wheel drive vehicle at the same time. There are going to be some systems that can handle a difference in wheel size. Usually those are driver selectable manual 4x4 systems like you would have in an old school pickup truck where you have to physically lock hubs or pull a handle. You can get away on a vehicle like that with mismatched tires because you can physically decouple the 4-wheel drive system. If you have an automatic all-wheel drive system like the Ford Explorers with the, I think it's Sport Track, or some of these Japanese vehicles will have a computer-controlled all-wheel drive that you as a driver can't select 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, full-time, part-time. So on those vehicles, it is very important that you replace all 4 tires at the same time with the same depth tread, the same type of tire, or you will definitely have driveline issues. I've replaced more than a couple viscous couplers in some of the Ford Escape vehicles. Some Jeeps have issues too, where those tires, if they're not the right size, the 4x4 system is going to be constantly trying to let a little bit of slip, and that slip causes the wear. So yeah, it's not a ploy. It's really good advice. Number 4. Have I ever had fun messing with somebody with a fuel cutoff switch? Now, some vehicles, I know the Ford Rangers back in the mid-2000s and a lot of newer vehicles have a system that shuts the fuel pump off if it feels an impact. If you get into an accident, it doesn't want to keep pumping fuel to the motor if the fuel lines could be damaged, if fire hazard and other dangers. So when this impact sensor feels an impact, it will shut the fuel pump off, kill the vehicle right there. We actually had a vehicle come in when I worked for Mazda, one of the B trucks, where the sensor was mounted in the passenger footwell. And you could be driving the truck, someone, the driver driving the truck, a person in the passenger seat, and you could just kick the side of the footwell, and it would trigger that switch and shut the fuel pump off. Now, I have had fun messing with people with that truck back at that one time. The fix for that, of course, if your vehicle won't start and it has one of these switches, you just reset the switch. Usually there are instructions in your manual and will tell you how to reset it, but by and large we don't really see a lot of failures with that system nowadays. So it's a safety system that if it's easy to trigger, you can have a little bit of fun with it. A lot of people, it just gives a headache. So question number 5, and the last question for this week. You guys need to ask me some more questions. What are my favorite wrenches, or as he calls it, because he's across the pond, spanners? I'm going to say my favorite are the Cornwell wrenches. Cornwell, they're probably the best quality tool at the most competitive price, and by and large I found that Cornwell's warranty is a couple of steps above Snap-on and Mac and Matco and those guys. There are things that those other guys like Mac won't warranty ratchets, but my Cornwell guy will. Same thing with my expensive Streamlights. Most of the other tool guys won't warranty those, but Cornwell will, and I really like their wrenches. If you look at my toolbox tour video last week, I think I actually showed the wrench with some of the chrome coming off, which for the abuse I put those wrenches through is a minor complaint, and it just has to be me just handing them to the tool guy, and he'll give me new ones. So I really like the Cornwell wrenches. I like Cornwell tools pretty much a little more than most of the other big tool companies, which is why I give them top billing on my wall. This is actually something my tool guy is a fan of my videos and saw what I'm doing here, and he stepped up and gave me that. Also, Snap-on and Mac have seen what he did, and now the other tool guys wanna have their businesses represented with stuff they gave me here too. So we should see some neat stuff coming on these walls. So anyways, that's just 5 quick questions, and I hope you guys found it helpful. Just if you guys have any questions, or if you know anybody that has automotive questions, tell them to check out my channel. Tell them to leave a comment down in the comments section, and I'll answer the question next week. So anyways, guys, I hope this has been informative. Kind of a short little 5 list, and like I said, I got room for 10 questions every week on this forum. So anyways, once you guys ask your questions, and until next time, keep it out of the cabbage.